G'day, I'm Mark from Self Sufficient Me. Just check out these 4 raised garden beds here. They are full of flourishing, green, lush, nutritious veggies. But would it surprise you if I said that prior to this season, the soil in these beds was atrocious? It was sandy and dry and awful, and you wouldn't be able to grow a cactus. But you know what I did? I got a whole heap of pretty fresh and green in some cases cow manure from the local dairy and dug it in the hope that it would resurrect these beds and give the plants that I wanted to grow in here a good chance of success. And that's exactly what happened. And in this video, I'm going to show you what a good load of poo can do. Let's get into it. The most organic thing you can put into a garden bed that can act also as a fertiliser but also pump up the water holding capacity in that bed is things like, yes, compost, but often that is in short supply. And it can be expensive if you're buying it from the shops, and you don't get a really great compost no matter where you buy it from, to be honest. And bag compost is never as good as the stuff you make. But what you can use is animal manures, and those big animal manures. Poultry manures tend to be okay, but they're not great for pumping up the water holding capacity in a bed. They're great for actual fertiliser, but bigger animal manures like horse and cow are much better at filling up that garden bed and getting that soil to a more bigger and crumblier and water holding capacity state. Out of a choice between horse and cow manure, both are pretty good. What I do like about cow manure over horse is that cow manure typically has less seeds in it because cows grind their food up and they grind the seeds up more, which means you have less weeds and grasses in your bed after you've added that to it. And cow manure isn't necessarily as potent. Fresh horse manure especially can be a lot more potent, a lot easier to burn your plants than cow manure because it has more urea in the actual manure itself. And I just find that cow manure has a different and better structure than horse manure does, and it breaks down better in the garden bed. But like I said, if horse manure is the only big animal manure you can come across, it's still great to use, but I would make sure it's fairly rotted down before you do put it in the garden bed. So I put it in these beds, and I did rest the beds anyway before I planted. I rested these beds for a good couple of months because even though I dug the manure in as well as I could, it was still too green and raw and heavy. And if you plant into that, or if you sow seed, all you're going to get is burnt roots of seedlings and the plants just will not flourish. So leaving it rest was very important. Anyway, let's just now see how they're going. Check out these dwarf peas. I only just harvested these about 4 days ago. They've already got probably another 50 that I can pick. It's amazing. You can eat them just straight like that, or you can let them mature and eat the peas out of them, or you can eat them when they're really flat and just really young. Small little wire trellis is all you need. Grow 2 feet high. They look so cute. And as you can see, they like the soil mix very much. Now we're behind the peas where I was standing looking at you, and the peas are here. And here's a good space. Behind the peas here, I've got some cauliflower, a bit of cabbage, and some squash growing here as well, just as a bit of an experimentation. But here's a good gap that I can dig down and show you guys. Dig down here. Let's dig a scoop out, see if there's any worms first. Because one of the things that, oh, there is too. One of the things that I did was I added compost worms just to help break down, see it there? Just to help break down the manure. They've done a great job, and they don't only just break down that manure, they also add value to the soil, as I've said many times before in many videos. But just have a look at this stuff, would you? See how beautiful and crumbly and dark that is? And, well, if I crush it together, it'll hold. It'll hold, but it won't hold like clay. It'll hold just enough to break apart and crumble back again. That is the soil mix you're looking for. That is the consistency you want. There's another worm. Perhaps it's the same one, I don't know. But if you can just squish it together and let it mould into shape, and it won't fall apart too easily, or it won't stream through your fingers, but you can also break it and crumble it apart, you've got the best of both worlds. You've got fantastic water holding capacity and also enough oxygen and to oxygenate the roots of the plant so that you're not smothering them or drowning them either. So that's the best of both worlds. So just to finish this bed off, you've got all this broccoli here coming up. You can see how beautiful and healthy it is. Over this side I have one Japanese giant mustard. This giant leaf mustard is superb in cooking. You don't need a lot of it. It grows like a giant, so you've got to keep the leaves down a bit, otherwise it can take over some of the garden. But that's self-seeded, so I just let that come up. In fact, I actually transplanted that to there. It came up elsewhere, and I just put it in that corner. Now, I want to quickly mention why this gap is actually here. What happened was some of the earlier plants didn't make it. And the reason why, I think, was because there were parts of this bed that was still not quite ready for planting, and a little bit too heavy and not mature enough, too green in some places, and I was a little too fast in wanting to plant out. Perhaps I didn't dig it in correctly and mix it with the soil enough, or perhaps I just added too much to a few spaces. And this type of thing you can see throughout all these beds. Like I said, overall big success, but there are spots that I noticed in all these raised garden beds where certain seedlings didn't go too well. Most did, but a couple didn't, and I think that was the reason. But the good thing is these gaps are now being used as succession crops. So now that the beds are a bit older and they have matured more, I've planted in some cabbage and other seedlings, and they are growing quite well. When these are dying back and have done their dash, I'm going to have other greens later in the season maturing just before summer, so that we can have that extended harvest. In the next bed down, I've got about 10 different allium species, or onions and garlic. Well, one species of garlic that I've just plonked in here, and the rest are all different types of onions. Won't get into that now, but as you can see, they are growing really well. Again, some of them didn't start off that great, and some did perish, and I replaced them with some extra plants that I had already on the go in case this happened. I always have some backups in small containers or pots that I can use if some do die off. And it seems like they are quite happy. They're nice and green, growing well, and should mature over the next couple of months coming into summer into some really good performing crops. In this bed here I've got quite a mix actually. You've got brassicas, lettuce, some different types of lettuce, even a little bit of rainbow chard that's just coming up as a seedling, but some garlic too, because I had spare garlic and I wanted to get rid of it or plant it out somewhere. Those were my leftovers. I didn't need them, so I wanted to at least plant them out and give them a good shot at life. Your gaps you can see around the outside here are the plants that didn't go so well. They were other types of cauliflower and brassicas like this and broccoli, but they didn't survive, so I've replaced them with some mini cabbages. Now that these beds are 3 or 4 months old instead of just 2 at the time of planting this stuff, these plants are doing quite well. The only reason some of these are looking a bit ratty, especially some of these lettuce crops, is because we've been chopping them down and eating them, of course. And this last bed here is doing exceptional. Look at the size of this cauliflower. It's gigantic. And hopefully the heads are going to be gigantic. Check out also this kale. My goodness, hail the kale, as I like to say. It's, look, we just about cut this back every night because we're having kale nearly every night for dinner. And you come back the next morning and it's all grown back. Well, that's how it feels anyway. Fair income grows like a whippet. Or is that yeah, fast. At the front there, again, we're using a lot of the lettuce. So this lettuce, apart from this Great Lakes, which is a hearting variety that we want to keep growing to the end of the season till it gets a nice big heart, gets a variety of iceberg. Apart from that, these other varieties, we just tend to keep plucking as they go. So they look a bit ratty, but they still look fantastic. Same with the spinach here. We've been utilising the spinach and the kale, but they don't grow back as fast. So those are the 4 beds. Overall, the poo from the moo has been an outstanding success to not only beef up the fertiliser in these beds, because they were lacking in nutrients, but also the holding of water and those nutrients so they don't get washed away as much. And having those plants not have to dig down so far with their roots to maintain moisture and good healthy growth. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you give it, well, I think I've done manure and that type of thumbs up before. Let's just give it a really big thumbs up. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already and share the video around, because that helps my channel out heaps. Bye for now.